Football phone in. Let's start by asking you, what's the single biggest fact that has angered or annoyed or frustrated you in this whole sorry episode that Rangers find themselves in?
I don't think there's one single fact. I think the main fact is basically what Craig White has done to our club. He's embarrassed it, humiliated it, did things that are unthinkable to a lot of good people. And to find out that we are now in an administration because of his actions, not the actions of the previous board or say David Murray and that, and what he did, basically took the supporters' money to buy the club and then used the PAYE of the employees at the club to bankroll it. You can't, it's indescribable what you feel for that.
Picking up on that point, the immediate question is, how was a man allowed to, first of all, gain control of the club from Sir David Murray, and how was he allowed to use Ticketus's money before he'd even been given control?
Well, some of the things I don't know the answers to that, but I do know that David Murray was warned by the previous board. They pleaded with him not to sell to Craig White. There was enough information out there about Craig White that everybody knew. I mean, if I can find so many things about him, it's beyond belief that David Murray couldn't, or Murray International couldn't find out about him. Also, the truth will eventually come out, but there is people who have got questions to be asked and they have to give answers. Donald Muir, who was put in place by the banks at Murray International and also became a member of the board, what was his role in the actual sale of Rangers Football Club to Craig White? What was the Lloyds Bank? To be honest, they treated the club abysmally when they were in place. And David Murray, and hopefully we'll get the answers one day.
Do you feel that Lloyd's TSB had the biggest sway in forcing this deal through because they wanted their money, they wanted out?
I don't know about that, but I just know that they were desperate to get Rangers off their books. We had a difficult relationship with them. They were unrealistic what they wanted to try and get the last board to do, and if it hadn't been for the last board being strong with them, then the club would have been in a far poorer state at that period. I mean, what the last board did, and particularly Martin Bain and Walter Smith, is we as a club had been downsizing probably for the last 4 or 5 years, getting the wages under control, but we were starting to trade out our debt. The debt, I think it was 3 years ago, was something like £34 million. The day Craig White took over, it was 14, although it went back up to 18 because of the close season. And in that period, we still managed to win 8 trophies out of 12, which was fantastic. Okay, we have this potential tax bill, which there's still no being a ruling on it. People are throwing and surmising that it's going to be 75 million. Nobody knows. It could be the other way, that Rangers win their case. And that's what makes it so galling, that when Craig White came in, and eventually we all got together and he got everybody and told that we were going into administration, everybody presumed that we were going into administration because of the big tax bill. Nobody knew about not paying VAT and not paying PAYE. And when the actual staff found that out, they just couldn't believe it. I mean, it was unthinkable. And I don't think we ever seen him again after that.
When an individual who's got a track record for taking companies and basically asset stripping them and folding them takes over a club, did you feel at that point when he walked in the door that the alarm bells were ringing?
Yeah, I was very fortunate at that. I'll admit it, I was close to the last board. People like John Gregg, Walter, Martin, John McClellan, and they knew everything about him, and they had fired up their concerns all the time. In fact, they more or less they signed their death warrant when they advised everybody they shouldn't sell the club to it. Obviously, he still got the club, and then he sacked him basically the next day with phone calls. And what he basically did is he decapitated the club. John McClelland and John Gregg were still on board, but he never told them anything. He never gave them any set of accounts. And in many ways, they were forced to do things to resign because at the end of the day, they're held responsible for the run of the club. They were getting no input, they were getting no information, and it transpires they did the right thing. I know that, well, it was a huge thing for John to do it. John Gregg. John had been at the club for nearly 50 years. Great love of the club. but he did the right thing, and hopefully when we get back on track, John will come back. He will come back.
Do you feel, Sir David Murray, because of certain complex issues, the economic downturn, the state of his other companies, do you feel as if his hand was forced? He was trying to get rid of the club for 3 years. There were no takers. Do you feel all those set of circumstances drove him to a point where he just thought, I'll give it to this man regardless, I need to get out?
It's hard to say. Unfortunately, he's the one that has to answer that. I do think that if you take the first 17 years of his tenure as chairman, David Murray was great for the Rangers Football Club. He's the most successful chairman in the club's history. I do think that if the credit crunch hadn't come and his companies had got into a wee bit of bother, then I don't think he would have taken the action he did. I think in many ways his hands were forced, but he's the only one that can answer that.
With regards to Craig White, do you think that Rangers could have actually made their way out of administration if he'd followed the correct protocol? Do you think he is the one single individual, out with the EBT case, which is still outstanding, do you think he's the one single individual that has taken Rangers to the brink of liquidation?
Well, yes and no. One of the big problems we had is that when Craig White came in, we had got the wage bill back down to a reasonable level. The first thing he did is he gave certain players new contracts, and to be honest, that just took the wage bill way back up, over 20 million. So that was the first kind of wee problem, if you know how the club was running. And unfortunately, we're not getting into Europe. That was a hammer blow. And even if the last board had been put in place and not getting into Europe, administration might have been on their agenda. The only thing I would have said about that is that it would have been a manageable administration. The administration process we're in at the moment is an actual nightmare for the administrators. They don't know where the money is, lacky information, the amount of bills not paid. When that came out the other week there, I think, all the staff in here were astounded. A lot of these, particularly the small creditors, they're all Rangers supporters. They do it because they love the club. They want to be connected to the club. They give us a very good price. They don't make a lot of money out. And to find out that the amount of them that hadn't been paid was shocking.
Do you fear liquidation now?
No, I'm still optimistic. Okay, I think we'll come out with administration. I don't fear liquidation. But what I would like to say on that is that God forbid that this club does go into liquidation, but there'll always be a Rangers, because one of the things that I've found, you always knew it when you've been at the club such a long time, but what's reinforced that is that as part of the Fighting Fund, myself and Jim Hanna have been around lots of supporters clubs over in Northern Ireland, all over Scotland and that, and the one thing that has come through is the amount of people that have got a love for this club, and who, even if the club was to start up again, they'd still be there. And the saviour for our club is our fan base, and they have been absolutely magnificent since we went into administration. They've turned up in huge numbers for every game. I mean, you look at it, we had a Legends game, we got nearly 48,000 people there. AC Milan people could not believe it. And these are some Baresi, Maldini, I played all over the world. They just couldn't believe the crowd we got. And the support we've had for the supporters, as I say, all the games, the money they've contributed to the Fighting Fund, actually it's been fantastic.
You as an individual, and I'm sure many Rangers fans will feel a sense of persecution, because there are some who've highlighted day in, day out, week in, week out on the phone in and across many of the broadcast outlets that Rangers have been given a kicking from certain areas.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we are a weakened animal at this moment in time, and I quite understand. I've been in football a long, long time, and when Rangers and Celtic are the dominant force and they're vitriolic, like all supporters are vitriolic, I can understand how a lot of supporters are saying, right, it's the time for them to get back in and maybe give them a wee kick here. But I think people that run football clubs should have a wee bit more common sense. And I think some of the SPL clubs I've seen as an opportunity to try and kick us when we're down. But what I would say to that is that we'll remember who's trying to kick us when we're down. And I know that there is a feeling, and a really strong feeling this time, that whatever happens, that and I know there's an SPL vote coming up, that there'll be action from the supporters. This is not just something with the supporters, it's everybody connected with the club and that. So for probably the first time, there's a real unity to, if somebody wants to do Rangers a bit of damage, then we'll react to that.
Do you feel the main driving forces within that gang of 10?
Oh yeah, aye. I mean, everybody, it's common knowledge. I'm not going to go into the names, but I think everybody would know who the names are.
What do you think life will be like in the SPL and the reality for the other clubs without Rangers?
Well, I think you're going to see the reality is already taking place. If we're not in the league or strong enough to challenge Celtic, you're going to get a situation what you've got now, that Celtic will win the league before the split. Now there'll be no interest in the league at all. You've got, I think, the Sky game on Saturday, is it not, Dundee United versus St Johnstone? They'll probably be one of the lowest viewing figures for Sky, and they'll just lack interest. They'll just drain away. What you've had between now, well, in the last, I think, 8 or 9 seasons, it's always been more or less really close. And so many seasons have went to the last day. The amount of interest which has been generated has been fantastic, but that's the reality. So people are going to see what the reality is in the coming weeks. For what this club has went through, we deserve a sanction of some sort. But what I'd say is that the supporters have done nothing wrong, the players have done nothing wrong, the management have done nothing wrong, and the staff have done nothing wrong. The people that have done wrong were Craig White and probably David Murray for instigating a tax case, if the tax case goes against us. These people have all left this club. The people now here at this club at this moment in time are having to pick up and deal with the present situation we're in. So I understand there has to be some sort of sanction. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, we'll take it. But they have to understand these people are now left. And for the SFA to say that Craig White is not a fit and proper person, are they not about 6-7 months too late? You know, if we knew all these rumours about him and things like that and documentation, they must have known. And what's that going to achieve? You know, it's a difficult one, and I can understand how all the other supporters for other clubs are maybe up in arms. But what you have to understand is, I say, that we are a special case. And the reason we're a special case is that when you look at the amount of supporters we take to away grounds, you take Dundee United, we'll probably take about 6,000 people there. We'll probably have half of their hospitality. Then everything that goes along with that, that's not just that club, every club. Then if they take action, basically they're hurting themselves and they're hurting Scottish football. See, that's the thing. Craig White didn't just do the damage to this club, which was really severe. He's also damaged Scottish football. And the integrity of the Scottish football and the name of Scottish football. If we do go into liquidation, the club will start up again, but we won't be in Europe. Won't be in Europe, I think it's for 3 years. See any other club that gets into Europe? Let's be honest. When was the last time? I think Hearts were the last club outside the old firm that got anywhere in Europe. So the coefficient's going to go further down as well. So it's got huge implications for the whole Scottish football.
The first part of the interview. Derek.